speaker, Daniel, who is going to let us know all about electricity, magic from the wall. Hello.
Alright, we don't spend a lot of time thinking about where electricity comes from, but for a moment imagine that you're in your house and all the appliances don't work. I'm here to tell you today that electricity, the way we receive it in our house and in industries, is nothing short of a modern miracle. The infrastructure required to make sure that you have power at your house only a few hundred years ago didn't exist. It's something that mostly only governments can afford to set up. There's a huge amount of investment behind it, and for that reason, any change that needs to happen is quite slow. We can't really talk about electricity without talking about power. So a long time ago, the only way we could get power other than our own muscles was from animals, and some clever people got water wheels and windmills, and then James Watt came along and he made a steam engine, and he had such an impact on the power industry that a unit of power is named after him. A modern power plant uses a machine that's huge. Look on the right here, you can see those guys standing on the left or right. That's a steam turbine. So most of the electricity provided to your house or a factory is made in one of these steam turbines. It's just a modern steam engine. And it's basically made by boiling water. For most types of electricity generation, we boil water. There's a few clever ways we do it. That's a solar concentrator. Those are just mirrors. Not solar panels, we have geothermal. Even nuclear power relies on boiling water to turn a turbine and turn that into electricity. So there are some clever ways to boil water, but mostly we boil water by burning stuff. And what stuff is that? We've figured out that burning carbon is especially an easy way to generate the heat to boil the water. And so I just want to get an idea of the type of scale that this industry has. So there's a giant truck on the right there. I don't know if you can see it. That's a big truck. There's one of the biggest trains I've ever seen. It's only to carry the carbon we dug out of the ground to the place where we're going to burn it. Same with boats. This is a liquid natural gas tanker. LNG is just a slightly different version of carbon. So we've got this industry that's set up with our biggest and best machines. Think about an oil tanker, just to cart around all this carbon that we're digging up from out of the ground. Okay, so what does it matter? Well, when we burn the carbon to make the heat, all you're really doing is adding oxygen to carbon, and then you get carbon dioxide. Now we've all heard, oh, carbon dioxide, greenhouse gas. Yeah, what about it? Well, all those millions of kilos of carbon we dig up turn to gas that are released into our atmosphere. This tiny little apple skin of a layer around our planet, and let's remind ourselves what it's made of. 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, that's 99%. 0.9% argon, who cares what that is? CO2 is 0.04%, a tiny fraction. Why does that matter? Okay, nitrogen, oxygen, and argon, they're all sort of symmetrical in their little molecule. But water and CO2 aren't, so they can sort of flap around with their charges, and that gives them the effect of being able to absorb infrared and then pass it on to the rest of the air around them. So basically, if you had a bunch of pure nitrogen in a glass box and had it in the sun, its temperature wouldn't change at all, or oxygen. But if you added just a tiny bit of carbon dioxide, it would start sinking all the heat it's receiving radiated back off the planet into that gas. So that's why it matters. This is a very busy slide, it doesn't really matter. It's just a pie chart about what are the emissions. And it doesn't really matter how you look it up, they're always a bit different, but there's basically three sectors. And I'd like to talk about those three sectors a bit. You've basically got power generation, so electricity for your house. You've got industry. Now, when I mean industry, I don't mean the transport used in industry or the electricity used in industry, but the actual process that releases carbon dioxide. For example, you can't make steel because we basically mine rust. You've got to then release a lot of carbon dioxide to make the steel. The same with farming. Transport is a big one as well. That's another sort of third of the big emissions. But transport is in the process of being electrified. So that's why I did want to talk about electricity a bit more today, because we're going to need a lot more of it going forward. Okay, so other ways to make electricity, for example, windmills. We've all heard of them. A big windmill, and they are bloody big now, can generate up to 15 megawatts. Now, to put that in context, an average coal power plant is only about 380, 400 megawatts. So you only need about 25 of these to match a coal power plant. So, okay, what about the life cycle assessment? It takes a lot of carbon to make the windmill itself. Yes, that's true. So maybe the first few months it's working off that carbon, but then it's basically clean energy. Compare that to a coal-fired power plant. People say, oh, I don't want it in my backyard. Okay, how would you like this in your backyard? There's basically no backyards around anymore in areas where coal is being built. Now, obviously, to build a factory like that also takes a lot of carbon footprint as well. Yes, coal is being burnt at a ridiculous rate. In the last 20 years, literally every week, a new coal-fired power plant has been opened, only in China, just one country. Now, they're big on coal, but it's not like, oh, we're going to plan one, no, ribbon cut, power plant open every week. And you think there's change coming, and I suppose my message is that we need to embrace new technology and new ideas faster, because we're running out of time. There are alternatives. This technology exists. It's a problem of deployment and a problem of public opinion. So let's get on side and think of ways to speed that up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Daniel, for that electrifying